Technology and defense cooperation, need for dialogue and diplomacy, invocation of democratic values at the US Congress. That has been the central theme of Prime Minister Modi's state visit to the United States. The two nations have inked some crucial deals which will bolster their partnership further. Discussion on technology cooperation figured prominently in discussions between the two leaders. India and US identified at least 25 areas for tech partnership. Both Modi and Biden urged officials to address regulatory hurdles and emphasized on the need to put in place trusted sources in critical and emerging technology. US-based semiconductor company Micron will set up a semiconductor assembly and testing facility in Gujarat. Micron, central government and Gujarat together will invest $2.75 billion. Along with Applied Materials will invest $400 million in a semiconductor innovation center. Lam Research will train 60,000 Indian engineers in semiconductor fabrication. In the artificial intelligence space, US and India have launched a $2 million grant program for joint development and commercial applications of artificial intelligence and quantum technologies. To take this discussion forward, I'm now joined by Raymond Vickery, Senior Associate, Center for Strategic and International Studies, R. Chandrashekhar, former Telecom Secretary and former President of NASSCOM. We're also joined by former Ambassador Singh and Ellen Nakashima, National Security Reporter at the Washington Post. Ellen, if I can begin with you first, what is the Biden administration exactly trying to achieve from this engagement with India? There has been some intense negotiation over the last few days. There have been deliverables across technology sectors. What is the US looking to achieve here?
So yes, there have been a series of deliverables announced in recent days, but at a high level, the Biden administration is seeking to showcase what they are calling the most consequential bilateral relationship in the world, the most important bilateral relationship on the global stage. They're really making an investment in India for the long term, continuing efforts begun by previous administrations. But this is really a signal effort by the Biden administration to showcase, lift up, as they say, this partnership that they hope and believe will pay dividends in the decades to come in trade, economy, and perhaps most importantly, in a sense, security and defense. The unspoken subtext here is China. Right. And while there was not a lot of explicit mention, while there was not explicit mention of China, especially by Prime Minister Modi, is quite understood that that China is the most significant adversary for India at the moment with its conflict and clashes on the border. And of course, for the United States, it is the significant pacing challenge going forward. And thus, the US sees India as a pivotal partner in countering China, not necessarily directly militarily if there's ever, for instance, an invasion of Taiwan by China, but rather in creating another power that can defend the values of sovereignty and openness in the Indian Ocean, in the Indo-Pacific, and help serve as a bulwark to an increasingly assertive China in the region.
All right. Ambassador Singh, if I can get you in at this stage, India has always wanted to be a leader in terms of new and emerging technologies, play a big role in global supply chains, but the technology part was really missing. We needed technology support. Do you think with the engagement this week, any hurdles to that technology partnership with India, do you think that has been removed? Do you think there has been a breakthrough in the partnership?
Look, it's been incremental. This is, I think, the apex of what started in 1998. May of 1998, a quarter century ago, we touched the lowest point when we tested the nuclear devices in May of 1998. There were sanctions and US went ballistic and all kinds of threats were posed. From there, we have climbed up step by step. And the world has changed. Geopolitical compulsions are there, and it's already been mentioned. Probably what has finally moved US in this direction is their realization that in terms of India's size, its economy, it's the only countervailing factor in Asia which can weigh and balance China. Now, interestingly, during the joint press meeting of the two leaders, when a question was asked, Wall Street journalist asked President Biden that, do you stand by your comment that President Xi is a dictator? He did not roll it back. It was very significant. And the impression you got is, I think he wanted to convey to India that Blinken's visit to Beijing seemed to give an impression that America was softening on China. President Biden was sending a signal that no, that is why he made the distinction between democracies. The relationship will always be different than we'll have with China. I think he was reassuring India in that. And then, of course, the joint statement takes it a step further. It's strategic convergence is the fourth subheading. The three subheadings leading to it are technology, defense, and clean energy. Now, these are all the building blocks of the future. This is all critical and emerging technologies where India needs to go if it has to abide by the Paris Agreement. We need development, but we also want clean energy. We also need new supply chains, and that's where semiconductors come in. So US is reconfiguring supply chains, and at the back of it all is China, and the Chinese would have got that signal. And I think it's a great opening for India. But the final thing is the strategic convergence. Russia is the big elephant in the room. It's not named. It's only indirectly referred to as a rule of law to be observed, sovereignty, territorial integrity. So the only difficulties we may have in the future is not between India and US. Depends how the Ukraine war goes, depends how US relationship with China goes, how China behaves in the Indo-Pacific. But otherwise, it's a great opening for India and the US.
Right. Mr. Chandrashekhar, if I can get you in, you've dealt with the tech industry in India and the United States as the president of NASSCOM earlier. I would like to ask you about the pushback that you have seen from the industry when it comes to policy in India, in the United States. To what extent those regulatory differences, those differences in export controls, to what extent have they been ironed out across certain priority sectors in technology?
Well, Parikshit, I think that in this whole joint statement, what we see is a tremendous amount of depth, breadth, and intensity in technology cooperation. Technology figures front and center of this joint statement, and it covers, most importantly, defense and clean energy in its sweep. So the new technologies, it's particularly important in the new and emerging technology space that these two areas, particularly defense, is also covered, because a lot of the sensitive technologies, a lot of the dual-use technologies, including things like AI, are also, emanate from defense collaboration. It's very difficult to talk about new and emerging technologies and keep defense completely out of it. So I think the signal here is that the US is choosing its partners. I think the term friendshoring was, put forward fairly recently, because, the technology sector is intensely global. And supply chains are global. A lot of the value addition is global. But what is happening now is, because of the present geopolitical environment, there's a lot of rebalancing that is happening. And it's no longer the case that supply chains are being looked at only from an economic and an efficiency point of view. They are being looked at from a reliability and a long-term partnership point of view. Apart from that, I think the fact is that this joint statement recognizes the depth of Indian and US collaboration in the tech space, particularly, the important role that Indian tech manpower is playing. We see a lot of references to skill development, joint programs in research, collaboration in innovation, and a lot of other things in which I think Indian tech manpower plays a significant role, not only in India, but in the US as well. On the alignment of policies, that itself covers many different sub-dimensions within policy. One is, of course, the policy restrictions at the US end in terms of restricting some sensitive technologies. But I think it's quite clear that now the US does lean towards India being their partner in terms of jointly working on strategic technologies. And I think there is little, again, doubt in my mind that this is certainly, the most important bilateral partnership in the technology sector. India has been known for its IT sector, but the efforts to build up the hardware sector, because without having a significant, base there, it will be very difficult for India to build a certain degree of both self-reliance as well as security. And that is again where the partnership with the US comes in, because both sides recognize that they have to choose their partners carefully and make their long-term bets. So all in all, I think this is a great augury, and I think it shows that both sides are willing to work at removing the barriers and moving forward from where we were, as Ambassador Casey Singh mentioned.
All right.
Moving well beyond the challenges
Those
of
are
the
some
past.
important points. Okay. I'll come to you once again, Mr. Chandrashekhar, to take a cue from what you're saying. Let me also pose some questions to Raymond Vickery of CSIS. Mr. Vickery, I would like to ask you about the GHAL deal. How significant is this for defense manufacturing in India? What is the quantum of technology transfer, the fine print that we're actually going to get? Because India had sought 100% technology transfer. We hear what could come is 80% technology transfer over a 3-year period. And what does this mean for a defense industrial collaboration over 20 to 30 years?
Well, thanks for having me. I think it's very significant. This technology for the GE engines is something that has been one of the most closely guarded technologies of the United States, not even shared with some allies. So it's significant. What we have here, of course, is a convergence not only of strategic interests vis-a-vis China, but a convergence of technology and commercial interests along with the strategic. This partnership has been in the works really for a long, long time. You may recall that there was a controversy in the Trump administration about the so-called foundational documents, which are the basis for being able to transfer, and required India to take on certain constraints in terms of how the technology would be used. So, as has been said by Ambassador Singh, this is an incremental kind of approach to U.S.-India relations. It's been going on really since before 1998, when India first opened up, did away with license Raj. So what you're seeing here is that the economic factor is a driver. It is not sufficient just to talk about this in terms of values or even a strategic interest. There are very strong commercial interests involved. And that really puts meat on the bones, if you will, of the U.S.-India relations. So it's been a great visit for U.S.-India relations, for democracy, and I would argue great for the economic and commercial relationship, which has underlined this for a number of decades.
All right. All right. On that note, we're going to take a short break, but we'll request all our guests, Mr. Chandrashekhar, Raymond Vickery, Ambassador Casey Singh, and Ellen Nakashima, to stay with us. We'll be right back after a short break.